My younger half-sister, Luo Shui, had long been secretly entangled with Xie Changfeng, the young marquis. Yet due to her low birth, she could never become the principal wife. So, after I married into the marquis estate, he deliberately kept a mistress outside the household. Luo Shui secretly told me about this woman's existence and even goaded me into fighting with her, a struggle that left both of us ruined. My name, my dignity, all lost. And in the end, not even my life remained. Luo Shui, on the other hand, took my place with legitimacy, marrying into the marquis household as the official secondary wife. Now, reborn, I've returned to the moment she leaned close and told me my husband was keeping a mistress. I smile calmly and say, as the lady of the house, the most important virtue is tolerance. I shall personally bring her into the residence. My name is Xin Juanhe, eldest legitimate daughter of Xin Yunshan, minister of the court. At 16, the esteemed Xie Changfeng, heir to the Anyang Marquisate, personally came to my family to propose. He hailed from a noble bloodline, possessed elegant looks, and carried no stain upon his reputation. Our marriage was swift. Little did I know that within half a year, I would learn of a mistress already 6 months pregnant with his child. Her name, Luo Shui. Before becoming Xie Changfeng's concubine, she was once a respectable young lady of a noble household. Her father, Luo Weimin, had died a heroic death on the battlefield in service of the nation. But no matter her background, she should never have become his mistress. Time and again, she provoked me. And so, the battle between us began. Months later, when she gave birth, she hemorrhaged and died young with the child. Before I could even process the news, several guards barged into the marquis estate and seized me before Xie Changfeng's eyes. Only then did I discover that consort Lin Yuan, the noble consort of the current emperor, was Luo Shui's half-sister. It was consort Lin who accused me of poisoning Luo Shui. She tortured me to death in the name of avenging her sister, and dumped my body in a pauper's graveyard. After death, my spirit drifted back to the Marquisate of Anyang. I wandered the skies above that estate for 10 long years before I finally understood just how terribly wrong I had been. The one who truly schemed for the position of the Marquis's main wife had never been Luo Shui, but my own half-sister, Xin Ruren. She and Xie Changfeng had been secretly involved from the beginning. But due to her low status as a concubine-born daughter, she could never be made principal wife. Thus, Xie Changfeng came to propose marriage to me, all while seducing Luo Shui, a woman from the western regions afflicted by a strange illness that meant she wouldn't live past 2 years. He knew Luo Shui's elder half-sister was consort Lin, the current emperor's favored concubine, and deliberately orchestrated a feud between me and Luo Shui. When she neared childbirth, he poisoned her, ensuring both mother and child would die. Then, once consort Lin tortured me to death in a vengeful fury, Xin Ruren, though still only a concubine-born daughter, had become the sole daughter of the Grand Minister. She was finally qualified to marry into the Marquisate as a legitimate secondary wife. She took the position of matriarch with honor and grace. While Luo Shui and we were nothing more than stepping stones for her ascent. I regretted everything to the core of my being. My hatred burned into my very bones. Then I opened my eyes, and saw Xin Ruren. Her face was still youthful, and she wore a trendy flowing immortal gown embroidered with blooming branches. Her voice was filled with indignation. Elder sister. At Red Hill Street. I was buying chestnut cakes and saw brother-in-law slip into Willow Alley with a pregnant woman. They were far too close. I had been reborn. In my previous life, this was the very moment when Xin Ruren first told me Xie Changfeng was keeping a mistress. I hadn't believed her. She led me to Willow Alley at Red Hill Street herself. That single visit shattered all dignity I had as the legitimate daughter of the Xin household. Under her constant provocation, I ended up locked in a vicious struggle with Luo Shui. And now, she stood before me once more, just like in the past, her tone inflamed. Elder sister, you mustn't let that wench give birth. If she bears your husband's firstborn, he'll bring both mother and child into the estate. How could you possibly stop that then? If you don't believe me, just come with me to Willow Alley. We're sisters. Why would I lie to you? I stared at her for a long time, calculating inwardly. Fine. Shinrurin had deliberately brought several fierce-faced, burly retainers along with a few old servant women from the Shin estate. This formation looked less like a visit and more like a raid. As soon as we boarded the carriage, she urged the driver to hurry. I tilted my head and glanced at her, and caught the strange gleam in her eyes. It wasn't anger as I'd believed in my past life. It was delight. When we arrived, the courtyard gate in Willow Alley was kicked open. Luo Shui, belly round with child, looked toward us in alarm. Who are you? What are you doing here? She shouted, but when her eyes met mine, her confidence faltered. Standing beside me, Shinrurin scanned Luo Shui with disdain and coolly declared. This is Shinjuanhe, legitimate eldest daughter of the Grand Minister and the properly wedded main wife of the young Marquis. Surely you understand why we've come. She then turned and ordered. There's no need to be gentle with her. Do what you must. Whatever happens, I'll take responsibility as the lady of the house. In my previous life, the first time I saw Luo Shui, I was too consumed by fury to think clearly, blindly obeying Shinrurin, letting her drive a wedge between us. This time, I gently raised my hand and calmly said, Anton, don't harm Miss Luo. Be gentle. Help her pack her things neatly and bring them to the carriage. Shinrurin looked stunned. Elder sister. You're just letting her go like this. What if brother-in-law blames you? Besides, she's pregnant, isn't this too cruel? Just like before, pretending to be kind, pretending to speak up for me, all while fanning the flames. I feigned surprise. Rurin, what are you saying? You brought me here out of concern, to teach Miss Luo a lesson. But you're still young, a concubine-born daughter. You don't understand, as the matriarch, one must show generosity. The Marquis lacks heirs. Now that Miss Luo is with child, it's only proper to bring her back and let her rest. She should be given a formal place. Shinrurin stiffened, staring at me in disbelief. Elder sister, are you mad? I ignored her and turned toward Luo Shui, who was still watching warily. Miss Luo, my sister is young and doesn't understand her words. I hope you won't take offense. If you trust me, come back with me to the estate. If you don't, I can summon the young Marquis, the two of us will come fetch you together. In my past life, Xie Changfeng and Shinrurin used us both as stepping stones. This life, I'll make them both suffer for it. After bringing Luo Shui back to the estate, I arranged for her to stay at Snowfall Courtyard, the best residence in the entire estate outside of my own. Shinrurin was furious. While Luo Shui was out, she stormed up to me, no longer hiding her anger. Elder sister. What is she, really? I'm your real sister. If I visit the estate, I should stay in your warm room or the guest chamber. Yet you treat her better than your own blood. On what grounds? She is the young Marquis' woman, and she carries his child. Her staying in Snowfall Courtyard is only reasonable. You, on the other hand, are merely a guest. If you were placed there, even the servants would laugh behind your back. Her face darkened. She stared at me closely, perhaps finally realizing I was no longer the naive fool she once knew. After a moment, she softened her tone. Elder sister. I'm your own blood. How could I ever harm you? I'm only angry on your behalf. Look at that wench's belly. She must have been meeting brother-in-law in secret ever since you got married. Ah, the same old tricks. I let a sorrowful look surface on my face. Rurin, you don't understand. Even as the main wife, I'm not free to act as I please. For women, wife or concubine, the most important thing is to bear children. If I fight with him now and lose his favor, if I never have a child, my entire future would be wasted. But elder sister, you're the Grand Minister's daughter. How could you speak so weakly? If I hadn't been reborn, I might have truly thought she was outraged on my behalf. After my mother died, my father shamelessly favored Shinruren's mother in public. By all logic, I should have hated her. But concubine Yao, aside from giving birth to Shinruren, also had a son named Shinxiang, 3 years younger than her. Concubine Yao loved Shinxiang with all her heart and never spared a thought for her daughter. Shinruren grew up half-fed, poorly clothed, and neglected. I couldn't bear to see it, so I took her under my wing. Since childhood, she had been closer to me than to her own birth mother. So close that I forgot a basic truth. Dragons beget Daeons, phoenixes beget phoenixes. A rat digs holes, and the child of a base woman will always be base in the end. I turned to Shinruren, face stern. Ruren, as the mistress of the household, the most important virtue is magnanimity. Back then, my mother wasn't willing to be generous, she clung tightly to my father, and what happened? He still had an affair with concubine Yao and gave birth to you. Her face turned pale, like someone deeply wounded. Then I softened my expression and tone, like the gentle elder sister of the past. That was wrong of me. You are you, and concubine Yao is concubine Yao. Don't take my words to heart. Of course she wouldn't dare misunderstand me. Shinruren had no choice but to grit her teeth and swallow the bitterness. Seeing her like that, my heart swelled with satisfaction. Feeling wronged. This is just the beginning. I personally oversaw the arrangement of Snowfall Courtyard, making it more comfortable for Luo Shui, and handed her a stack of silver notes. If there's anything you want to eat or need, just have your maidservants go buy it, I said. She froze for a moment. I'll have my own people go. Madam, will my attendants be allowed to leave and re-enter the estate freely? Of course, I replied with a smile. I've never been pregnant, so I don't understand the taboos of expectant mothers. It's best you handle such matters yourself. In my past life, the crime of poisoning Luo Shui was pinned on me. This life, I would never allow history to repeat itself. A flicker of surprise passed through her eyes before she knelt respectfully before me. From her expression, I could see genuine gratitude. Exactly as I had predicted. She was a dying woman carrying a child, of course she wouldn't be foolish enough to antagonize me. In our previous lives, both she and I had been pawns in Xie Changfeng and Shinruren's schemes, fighting one another until we were both destroyed. I was about to tell her to rise when Xie Changfeng strode into the courtyard. He exchanged a fleeting glance with Shinruren, then quickly stepped in front of Luo Shui, shielding her behind him. His face was flushed with anger as he shouted. Shinjuanhe, you are the mistress of this house, how can you be so petty and cruel? Luo Shui is carrying my child. Why do you insist on making things hard for her? I looked at him calmly, half smiling. Marquis, in what way have I made things difficult for concubine Luo? Luo Shui tugged on his sleeve and spoke softly. My lord, you've misunderstood madam. She didn't make things hard for me. She personally came to fetch me back, gave me status, and even granted me Snowfall Courtyard to stay in. Madam is the kindest woman I've ever met. Please don't hurt her. Xie Changfeng was stunned that she defended me. He stood speechless. Before he could respond, I gently pushed him toward the exit. Concubine Luo has just arrived at the estate, she must be feeling uneasy. Marquis, you should spend more time with her these days to ease her mind. But, that's not appropriate. Xie Changfeng hesitated, stealing glances toward Shinruren behind me. Feigning confusion, I asked. What's wrong? I'm not competing with you for anything. Didn't you keep her outside because you liked her? Or, was that affection fake? Xie Changfeng was at a loss for words. He couldn't admit his so-called love for Luo Shui was all a lie. Left with no way out, he reluctantly led her away. Shinruren tried several times to leave the main courtyard, but I deliberately stopped her. Ruren, my heart feels uneasy today. Stay and dine with me, keep me company. After dinner, I added. The night is quiet and lonely. I'm afraid my thoughts will wander. Stay and sleep here with me tonight. Shinruin had no choice but to stifle her urge to sneak off and meet Xie Changfeng, and stayed behind, washing up and changing into night clothes. I sent Qingni, my most trusted maid, to check in on Snowfall Courtyard. In my past life, I was crippled after being pushed by Luo Shui. Qingni scolded her to her face, and Xie Changfeng promptly exiled her to the countryside. Later, they told me she had been bitten by a venomous snake near the fields. Only after death did I learn the truth. Her death was orchestrated by those two wretched lovers. I signaled to Qingni. Soon, she returned, and deliberately raised her voice. Concubine Luo seemed unwell. When I arrived, the Marquis was massaging her belly and had sent for a physician from the capital. Is she all right? Just some bloating. Nothing serious, the Marquis was just overly worried. I turned to Shinruin and sighed. He's become so attentive. No wonder they say men become responsible once they're about to be fathers. Later that night, as we lay in bed with the lights out, I heard Shinruin tossing and turning restlessly. She couldn't sleep. Good. Let her know what it feels like to lose sleep. In my previous life, during those months she incited me to fight with Luo Shui. Not once did I sleep soundly. Now, it's her turn. The next morning, Shinruin quickly washed up and said, Elder sister, I'll go check the kitchen to see what's prepared for breakfast. Of course, I knew she had no interest in food preparation. But I let her go. Not long after, Luo Shui came to pay her respects. I asked, Where is the Marquis? She replied, He said something urgent came up and went to the study early this morning. You don't need to serve me here, I said plainly. These pastries are the Marquis's favorites. Bring them to his study, and while you're at it, help him grind the ink and steep his tea. Luo Shui bowed and quietly withdrew. Once she was gone, I called Qingni over and instructed her. Find a discreet maid, someone quiet, not easily noticed. Have her follow concubine Luo and act depending on what she sees. Qingni replied. Tuyini's older brother works in the study. It would be most appropriate to send her. Tuyini was born in this estate. Once, she had been falsely accused of stealing money and nearly handed over to the authorities by the steward. Had Qingni not spoken up for her, she would have lost her life. I remembered that incident clearly and nodded in agreement. After giving those instructions, I sent Qingni to summon Chu Tong. He was the son of one of my late mother's dowry maids, loyal and unwavering. In my past life, he had been falsely accused by one of Shinruin's maids of spying on her while she bathed. He couldn't defend himself and was ultimately sentenced to exile. Even then, I had suspected something was wrong. But with no one left I could trust, I had no way to investigate. Only after my death, while my soul wandered the Marquisate, did I learn, Chu Tong's fall was another filthy trap laid by Shinruin and Xie Changfeng. In this life, I would protect them, every one of them. About the time it takes to brew a cup of tea later, Chu Tong arrived, standing silently under the corridor, waiting for my command. I invited him into the room and said sternly, Brother Chu, I have 2 tasks I wish to entrust to you. No one else must know of them. Chu Tong bowed low and declared, Miss, if you command it, I would die 100 deaths without complaint. Please, instruct me. No need for 100 deaths. I smiled faintly. The first task, I want you to go to Yangzhou and purchase a few beautiful young girls, delicate and slender. Once he left, I reclined on the imperial consort chair, lifting a cup of cold tea from the table and draining it. Qingni, who had been holding her tongue since yesterday, finally dared to ask. Miss, what exactly is going on? She had always been loyal to me. I had no intention of keeping her in the dark. Better to let her know than let someone exploit her blind faith. Ruin and Xie Changfeng have betrayed me. The two are deeply in love, so much so that they wish to eliminate me to clear a path for Ruin. We must begin preparing now. Second Miss and the Marquis. Chingni looked shocked. Wasn't the Marquis infatuated with concubine Luo? Luo Shui and I were merely stepping stones for her to trample over, I said coldly. Chingni's eyes reddened. How could Second Miss do that? You've been so good to her. Why not return to the Shin estate and report it to the Lord Minister? You're the legitimate daughter, he wouldn't abandon you. My father's heart now lies with concubine Yao, I said calmly. And if he could betray my mother, he'd have no qualms about turning on me. I patted her hand. Don't be afraid. Now that I know what kind of filth they are, I won't let myself become prey. The upper hand is now mine, I'm the one holding the knife. Just then, Tuyini returned. Chingni quickly stepped outside to meet her, and moments later came back to report. Tuyini said when concubine Luo arrived at the study, she knocked, but the door wasn't opened right away. After some time, the one who walked out was Second Mississippi. From afar, she was heard saying she was delivering something on your behalf. Chingni gritted her teeth. Second Miss is shameless. How dare she seduce her brother-in-law? It takes two hands to clap, I replied coolly. Go fetch the Wanyang pill from my dowry chest. Miss. You're going to use the pill. Chingni looked stunned. The Wanyang pill was part of my mother's dowry. When I married, one of her old maids personally entrusted it to me. It was said to be created by the famous physician Lu Bingtan, and it greatly enhanced a woman's chances of conceiving. There were only 2 pills. Since entering the Marquisate, I'd been too busy managing affairs to think of children, so I hadn't touched them. Now, knowing Xie Changfeng's true nature, the thought of bearing his child repulsed me. Of course I'm not taking it myself. I smiled. Grind 1 pill and mix it into Shinruren's tea. As for the second, I have another use for it. By noon, Shinruren stormed into the main courtyard, face dark. That vixen Luo Shui. She stayed in the study with brother-in-law all morning. Elder sister, how can you be so calm? So, after Luo Shui entered, she stayed and spied outside the entire time. Unable to bear it, she came running to me to complain. I sighed softly. What can I do? Barging into the study to chase her out would make me seem petty. She's pregnant. I have to hold back. Chengni stepped forward and poured tea for her, gently saying, Second Miss, the madam is already heartbroken. Please don't bring her more sorrow. Useless. Shinruren snapped and downed the tea in one gulp. I shook my head. It's not that I'm useless. It's just. If the Marquis loves concubine Luo, what am I to do? Must I lower myself and fight for his affection? If you don't fight, then one day she'll take the Marquis entirely. She snapped. I'm worried for your sake, elder sister. Ah, Ruren, I know your heart. I beckoned Chengni to bring over a jewelry box and took out a phoenix tail peacock hairpin. Here, wear this. Just a token from me. After she left, I rested for a while. When I woke, a maid reported that concubine Luo had come to visit. As I combed my hair and washed my face, I invited her into the inner room to talk. She looked down anxiously and asked, Madam, is Second Miss not here in the main courtyard? She likely went to the flower garden, I replied. There's a patch of blooming dahlias. Suddenly, Luo Shui knelt before me. Chingni, who was helping me wash, jumped in alarm. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Because I already knew, more or less, what she was about to say. As expected, she began in a trembling voice. Madam, from yesterday until now, I have kept your kindness close to my heart. To be cared for by a matriarch so generous and compassionate as you, it is the greatest fortune of my life. After her gentle opening, she finally came to the point. Forgive me for not speaking sooner, I have been poisoned. I fear. I may only have a year left to live. She confessed that she had been poisoned, and solemnly swore not to contend for Xie Chongfeng's affection. All she asked was that I care for the child in her womb after she passed. So naive. It was only the second day, and she already trusted me so completely, divulging her deepest secret. But perhaps that was no surprise. If she were truly shrewd, she would never have foolishly agreed to become Xie Chongfeng's mistress in the first place. In my past life, I died far too unjustly. Poisoned. I feigned alarm and helped her to her feet. I'll send your medical record into the palace and summon an imperial physician immediately. No need, Luo Shui said, tears welling in her eyes. I've already had a diagnosis. Already? I asked. Did the Marquis call a physician? No, she hesitated. I didn't want to worry him, so I never told him. Then, who did you go to for diagnosis? I pressed. She faltered, then lowered her head. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to be done. Clearly, she still held some caution and had no intention of revealing that consort Lin, her half-sister, was the one who helped her. I chose not to press further and instead said gently, then I'll have people search outside the palace. Perhaps we'll come across a renowned physician or someone who knows of an antidote. Maybe we can save you yet. Luo Shui immediately looked touched to the point of tears. Madam, you are truly too kind. She bit her lip and lowered her voice. Madam, are you aware of the true intentions of your younger sister? Intentions? I asked. Yesterday in the main courtyard, she whispered, I saw something strange in the gaze between Second Miss and the Marquis. And this morning, when I arrived at the study, I saw her exiting the room. She claimed you sent her with something, but surely, madam, you wouldn't send an unmarried girl alone to meet your husband in private. I say this not to sow discord, but only because I fear there may come a day when this causes you heartache. I gave her a small smile. Luo, my sister is still young and sees the Marquis as an elder. My father treasures her dearly, he would never let her become a concubine. You needn't worry. The following days were filled with work. I busied myself managing the estate accounts and overseeing operations across the household. When I first married into the Marquisate, the Xie family had few members. There were no in-laws, no sisters-in-law, and as the only lady of the house, I had complete authority over the inner courtyard. So I made few staff changes then. But times had changed. Silently, I began cultivating a loyal faction of servants and placed them in key positions throughout the estate. While I remained occupied, neither Shenruren nor Luo Shui were idle. Ruren constantly found reasons to linger near me, always whispering complaints about Luo Shui, saying she acted arrogant and ambitious just because she was pregnant. Each time she spoke ill of her, I put on a distressed face and comforted her. Luo Shui is indeed hateful. But I can't harm the child in her womb. Once she gives birth, I will deal with her properly. Meanwhile, Luo Shui frequently warned me that Shenruren was getting too close to Xie Changfeng, and that their relationship seemed inappropriate. Whenever she brought it up, I merely smiled and said, Ruren is still young. She's lively by nature, she'll grow out of it. Luo Shui took that as disbelief and began investigating on her own, determined to present evidence. As the days passed, suspicion grew between them, and conflict followed. I had guards secretly watch over Luo Shui to ensure she wouldn't be harmed. As for Xie Changfeng, he could not openly favor Shenruren, so her influence began to wane. Her mood soured by the day. Frustrated, she started taking her anger out on her maids. More than once, when her maids served her meals, I saw bruises up and down their arms beneath their sleeves. Then, one day, 2 months later, while we were having lunch, Shenruren suddenly vomited. What's wrong? I asked, my heart stirring slightly. Just a stomach chill. I feel a little unwell, she replied quickly. It's nothing, elder sister. But her eyes, they betrayed her panic. Before, I had only suspected. Now I was certain. Shinruren was pregnant. After the meal, she remained beside me, pretending to chat casually. Then, feigning innocence, she asked. Elder sister, you're so tolerant of that vixen Luo Shui, only because she's carrying your husband's child. But, if another woman were to become pregnant with his child, would you still be so generous? Ah. So she had made her choice. In the past, she tried to hide her ambition behind a mask of innocence, determined to one day become Xie Changfeng's official wife. But now, with a child growing inside her, she could no longer wait. Even if it meant starting as a concubine, she was willing. She likely thought, let me bear his child first. Once that child is born, I'll deal with the current matriarch then. If the principal wife dies, the favored concubine can rise. I turned to face her, my expression serious. That would depend on who the woman is. What do you mean? She blinked, confused. I lowered my voice. Ruren, do you really think I tolerate Luo Shui simply because she's pregnant? Isn't that the case? She asked hesitantly. Of course not. Ruren, this is a secret I share only with you, because you're my sister. But you must never breathe a word of it. I swear it. She immediately pledged. If I speak a word, may I lose my tongue and my legs rot off. Only then did I slowly say. Luo Shui's identity is not so simple. Her half-sister is none other than Consort Lin, the emperor's favorite. I may be the legitimate daughter of the Grand Minister, but Consort Lin is deeply favored and has borne 2 princes. If I dared touch her sister, it would be suicide. Her face blanched with shock. Indeed, she had not known. In our past lives, it wasn't until 2 days before Luo Shui went into labor that she and Xie Changfeng discovered her connection to the palace. Originally, they only meant to use her as a mistress, a tool to provoke jealousy in me. But after learning her true lineage, they changed course immediately, poisoning her and pinning the murder on me. I smiled coldly. If she didn't have such powerful backing, dared seduce my husband, I would have shown her what I'm truly capable of. Elder sister, you've always been so kind, Shinruren forced a stiff smile. I reminded her gently. Ruren, have you forgotten how Granny's son died? Back then, I was only 9. Ruren was 7. My mother had only recently passed. Granny's son, who managed the sewing room, coveted the last of my mother's jewelry. Her son owed gambling debts, and she grew greedy. One night, Ruren and I caught her trying to steal from my mother's belongings. Cornered, she went mad, threatening us both. She said she had already smuggled many of my mother's possessions out. If we exposed her, her son would claim my mother had had an affair with him. The dead cannot defend themselves, we were forced to remain silent. Not long after, Granny's son died mysteriously. Ruren knew I was behind it, but no one ever found proof. For a long time after, she trembled in fear whenever she saw me. But in recent years, I had softened my image. Perhaps she'd forgotten just how terrifying I could be. Her hands, hidden within her sleeves, were trembling faintly. How cunning and cowardly she truly is. I looked at her coldly, my lips curling into a slow smile. She stammered on. Brother-in-law is only temporarily bewitched by that fox Luo Shui. If not for her, he would surely remain devoted to you, elder sister. How could he ever glance at another woman? Clumsy deflection. I casually echoed her words. Indeed. Not long after Shinruren left, Luo Shui came to report something of her own. She claimed she saw one of the young pages beside Xie Changfeng delivering a jewelry box to the guest room where Shinruren was staying. I understood at once, the two had quarreled over Luo Shui, and now he was sending her gifts to placate her. I showed no reaction, only dipped my finger in gingered water and gently dabbed the corner of my eye. Instantly, my eyes turned red and brimming with tears. Madam, what's wrong? Luo Shui asked, startled. I waved off the servants, held her hand, and spoke with apparent heartache. Ah Shui, there's something I must tell you, but you must promise never to speak of it to anyone. You can trust me, madam. No matter what it is, I'll keep it to myself. Rewritten, she's pregnant. Carrying the Marquis's child. As I said this, I shifted away from her belly and leaned onto her shoulder, sobbing softly. Ah Shui. I am the matriarch of the Marquisate, and I can't even keep my own husband. I'm the Grand Minister's legitimate daughter, and I've failed to raise my own half-sister properly. Tell me, am I not a failure in every possible way? Luo Shui froze, then rage ignited across her face. She cried out. You've done nothing wrong, madam. It's the Marquis and Rewritten who are shameless. They betrayed you. You are the best matriarch under heaven. Madam, what do you plan to do? Whatever it is, I will stand by your side. Her words were resolute, ironclad. I lifted my gaze to her, and in her eyes, I saw sincerity. She truly was a strange woman. In our past life, she had loved Xie Changfeng to the point of madness. I had once arranged for her to leave the capital, and she returned of her own will. But now, I had never once forbidden her from approaching Xie Changfeng, and yet, she grew more and more distant from him, spending her days beside me, openly clashing with Rewritten. And now, she even dared curse Xie Changfeng aloud. I embraced her and wept. She panicked, fumbling to comfort me. As I cried, a sliver of guilt touched my heart. But conscience is fleeting, strategy is enduring. When the moment was right, I stopped crying and told her. I have a plan, but I'll need your help. It will be risky. If you are unwilling, I won't force you. Madam, I'm willing. She blurted without hesitation. So tears work on women too, not just men. I choked out. I cannot allow Rewritten to become a concubine in this house. Years ago, her mother entered our estate as a concubine, and my mother died not long after. Now she wants to do the same to me, I can't walk the same path. Rewritten has always resented me. I want to use you to draw her out, to provoke her into acting before the Marquis acknowledges anything. Once she acts, I'll have an excuse to send her back to the Shen estate. And once she's there, I'll find her a marriage, and be rid of her. But, what about her child? Luo Shui asked in shock. If the Marquis has touched her, he won't just let her go. She's pregnant, but so are you. The Marquis dotes on you. If you force him to choose, he won't fight to protect her. She didn't reply. But after a while, she slowly nodded. By the time our teapot ran dry, our plan was fully laid out. That night, I summoned Rewritten and said gently. After Luo Shui gives birth, I intend to ask the Marquis to elevate her as a secondary wife. Rewritten froze. Why would you do that, elder sister? To win favor with Consort Lin, I said calmly. I've long given up on the Marquis. In my dowry, there's a precious pill, one that nourishes pregnancy and is said to guarantee a son. I plan to use it myself. If I bear him a legitimate heir, and Consort Lin is grateful for my tolerance of Luo Shui, she will surely support my son's claim as heir. Once my son is named successor, I'll take him to live quietly in a separate manner and leave the rest of the chaos to rot. Of course, it was all lies. I wanted Rewritten to believe I had allied with Luo Shui, and even Consort Lin. That was the one thing she feared most. She and Xie Changfeng had planned to use Luo Shui as a scapegoat to ruin me. But if I was now in league with Luo Shui, then forget dreams of taking my place, even entering the estate as a concubine would be impossible. Her face went pale. I pretended not to notice and casually lit the lamp with a silver pin, murmuring. I only called you here to remind you, don't trouble her again. Yes, she whispered hoarsely. I asked Qingni to bring my embroidery basket and, right before her eyes, began stitching a sachet. Rewritten asked curiously. Elder sister, why are you making these yourself? The Dragon Boat Festival is coming. This is my first year in the Marquisate. I want to make sachets for everyone, to ward off evil and show goodwill to our relatives. Will Luo Shui receive one too? Of course. If I want to win Consort Lin's favor, how can I not prepare a sachet for her sister? Shen Ruren lingered a bit longer, then took her leave, her face full of thoughts. She knew, if she wanted to become mistress of this house, she had to act before I truly allied with Consort Lin. And that was the very opportunity one had laid before her. On the morning of the Dragon Boat Festival, I had Qingni deliver sachets to Xia Changfeng, Shen Ruren, and Luo Shui. A stick of incense later, Qingni returned to report. The Marquis accepted the sachet meant for concubine Luo. He said he'll visit her later and will bring it with him. Soon, a servant came to say, the Marquis had arrived at Snowfall Courtyard, stayed for a time, and then left the estate, saying he had plans to watch the day in boat races. Not long after, Luo Shui came quietly to see me. She handed me a sachet and whispered, "Madam, I examined it. It's not the same as the one you made." I took it. The fabric and stitching were identical to my own. The sewing technique was flawless. But I counted the stitches along the edges, 98 total, 49 up, 49 down. Shen Ruren had indeed been meticulous. But she didn't know, I had already warned Luo Shui, my sachets always have 99 stitches, 45 forward, 54 backward. You didn't inhale much of it, did you? I asked. I held my breath the moment I touched it, she replied. I let out a quiet breath and handed the sachet to Qingni to burn immediately. What comes next may be a bit dramatic. You should return to your room, or she might grow suspicious. Understood. That evening, Xia Changfeng returned. It was Dragon Boat Festival. He needed to escort me to the ancestral hall for offerings. As soon as the ritual ended, an old maid came rushing toward us, panic in her voice. Marquis. Madam. Something terrible has happened at Snowfall Courtyard. Concubine Luo is bleeding. The baby may not survive. What? Xia Changfeng staggered in shock. I reached out to steady him, but he shoved my hand aside and sprinted towards Snowfall Courtyard. Halfway there, we encountered Shen Ruren, her face ashen. Elder sister, brother-in-law, is it true? I heard that concubine Luo is bleeding. We'll know when we get there, I said sharply. Trying to appear innocent, she suggested. They say women's quarters are filled with petty schemes. Perhaps we should gather everything concubine Luo used today and let the doctor inspect them. Why? I asked coolly, do you assume it was something she ate or used? Shen Ruren stammered, her voice flustered. The baby in concubine Luo's womb has always been healthy. If no one tried to harm her, how could this? As she spoke, her gaze flicked toward me, then she abruptly fell silent. A moment later, she changed her tone. Elder sister is right. Perhaps it was just concubine Luo's carelessness. After all, who in this estate would dare harm her? I spoke without thinking. Her flimsy excuse and hasty backpedal made the others cast me strange looks. Xia Changfeng ordered a name card sent to the palace to summon an imperial physician. Then he turned toward me with fury burning in his eyes. If anything happens to Luo Shui, I will write you a divorce letter myself and expel you from the marquisate. I raised my voice in protest. I've done nothing. On what basis does your lordship falsely accuse me? A crime must be proven with evidence. Do you think I can't find proof? He snapped before storming off towards Snowfall Courtyard. Inside the courtyard, Luo Shui lay pale on the bed, a thin blanket draped over her body, sweat soaking her forehead. At the foot of the bed, a light-colored robe lay discarded, stained with splashes of vivid red. My lord! She forced out, before curling in pain, unable to say more. Beside her, the household physician wiped sweat from his brow and dropped to his knees. My lord! I am useless. I cannot determine what afflicts the concubine. In all my years of practice, I have never encountered anything so strange. The palace physician will be here soon, said Xie Changfeng, his voice grim. To enter, I will find who did this to you. He waved for the physician to withdraw, then ordered the servants to gather all of Luo Shue's food and daily items for inspection once the royal doctor arrived. An hour passed before imperial physician Wang arrived. Luo Shue's eyes barely opened, her breath was faint, on the verge of disappearing. From the side, Shenruren's expression could hardly conceal her smug delight. Xie Changfeng anxiously urged. Please, examine her quickly. She is my concubine, what is wrong with her? Can she be saved? After taking her pulse, physician Wang hesitated. This. Before he could continue, Xie Changfeng abruptly turned toward me and raised his foot to kick. I was no fool. I sidestepped swiftly. He missed, stumbled, and barely regained his balance. You wretched woman! He roared. Even now, you dare evade punishment. You owe me a life, the life of my beloved concubine and our child. I stared back coldly. And what proof do you have to convict me? Suddenly, Shenruren rushed forward and threw herself to the ground. Through sobs, she cried. My lord, please don't harm elder sister. This must not be her doing. It was me. I poisoned Luo Shui. If someone must die, let it be me. Xie Changfeng sneered. Xinjuanhe, you truly are heartless. Even now, you won't admit guilt and would rather sacrifice your own sister. I raised my brow and laughed inwardly. What a flawless performance. Before I could utter a word, the verdict had already been declared. Shenruren and Xie Changfeng exchanged the briefest of glances, as if their stage play had reached its victorious finale. Just then, Imperial Physician Wang spoke up. My lord, you may be mistaken. Concubine Luo is perfectly fine, and so is the child. What? Xie Changfeng froze. You doubt my medical skill. The old man scoffed. He pulled a small white porcelain vial from his robe, waved it gently under Luo Shue's nose. She let out a long yawn, and to everyone's astonishment, sat up in perfect clarity. What's going on? Xie Changfeng stammered. Luo Shui lowered her head like a child caught misbehaving. My lord, I'm sorry. I frightened everyone. It's the Dragon Boat Festival. I may have overindulged in zongzi. I just couldn't digest it. My stomach hurt. And the fainting. Sleepy, I suppose. And the blood. I spilled some pomegranate wine. Still unwilling to accept it, Xie Changfeng turned to Physician Wang. If nothing's wrong, then why did you hesitate earlier? The fetus is a bit constipated, Wang admitted awkwardly. I just didn't know how to say it politely. I turned to Shenruren, smiling softly. Sister, I suppose I've been cleared now. Her face turned as white as paper. Then Luo Shui added. Since I entered the estate, Madam has treated me with great kindness. But second miss, she has always found fault with me. If anyone were to poison me, I believe she is the only one with such intent. She looked to Xie Changfeng, teary-eyed. Some time ago, Madam gifted matching bracelets to me and Second Mississippi. But she sent them to Second Miss's chamber first to choose, and I was given the remaining one. The maid said Second Miss examined the bracelets for a long time before making her choice. As soon as I wore it, I began to feel ill. I suspect poison was placed on the bracelet. You slanderer! Shenruren shouted. How could I poison your bracelet? Then why did you take so long to choose? Was it that difficult? I was napping. I only looked at them after I woke. And if you suspected poison, why didn't you say so then? Because the gift came from the matriarch, Luo Shui said coldly. And you are her sister. If I made a fuss, wouldn't that make her look bad? I held my tongue, out of respect. Shenruren turned desperately to me. Elder sister. I didn't do it. You must believe me. She glanced toward Xie Changfeng, hoping for support. I replied icily. Whether it was poisoned or not, we can ask physician Wang to test it. Luo Shui nodded and signaled to her maid, who brought out the bracelet wrapped in silk. Physician Wang examined the bracelet along with all the other items used that day. At last, he concluded. Only the bracelet contained poison. If worn by a pregnant woman, it would cause miscarriage within 3 days. Luo Shui sneered. That bracelet was given to me 3 days ago. No wonder second miss was so eager to accuse me of being poisoned. She needed to shift the blame to madam. She turned toward Xie Changfeng, tears glistening. My lord, someone is trying to harm our child. I'm truly afraid. I turned to Shen Ruren with quiet disappointment. I warned you not to provoke concubine Luo. Idle gossip is one thing, but to scheme against the heir of this house. I cannot let you remain here. Pack your belongings. Return to the Shen estate. Elder sister. I didn't do it. Shen Ruren sobbed, unable to refute. My lord, she's framing me. Luo Shui's voice trembled. My lord, I'm not afraid of dying, but I fear losing our child. She believed her scheme had worked, that Xie Changfeng would now expel Shen Ruren for the child's sake. But instead, he said coldly. Enough. The child wasn't harmed. Why are you all making such a fuss? He turned his gaze to me. Juanhe, that bracelet was your gift. Whether poisoned or not, you cannot wash your hands of it like Ruren can. Truly, a man without shame. Luo Shui and I exchanged a glance. Disbelief flickered in her eyes. I spoke calmly. Very well. Then I shall return to the Shen estate, and Ruren shall come with me. When concubine Luo safely delivers the child, I will return to the marquisate. Xie Changfeng could find no justification to stop me, and in the end, allowed me to take Shen Ruren back to the Shen estate. When we arrived, Shen Yunshan was not home. The concubine Lu, upon seeing the disheveled state we were in, was stunned. Shen Ruren immediately threw herself into her mother's arms and began sobbing uncontrollably. Lu Yumei didn't spare me a single glance. She quickly ushered her daughter away to her private quarters. Back then, I truly believed Lu Yumei treated Shen Ruren coldly, which is why I pitied her and kept her by my side. Only now did I see the truth clearly. They had both been playing a part, deceiving me all along. I settled quietly into a guest room, patiently waiting. Sure enough, half an hour later, a servant reported. Concubine Lu has arrived. She entered as though returning victorious from war, her smugness practically flooding the room. Behind her, Shen Ruren no longer cried, she simply kept her head bowed. Eldest miss, Lu Yumei began smoothly, Ruren is your sister. It's not easy managing the marquisate. Letting her stay by your side to assist you would be best for everyone, don't you think? Assist? In what way? I asked with a half-smile. The marquis is currently enchanted by that fox Luo Shui. If Ruren enters the household as a noble concubine, she can help you win his heart back, wouldn't that be a good thing? Ruren wants to win the marquis's heart. I said, voice calm. Just like you seduced my father all those years ago. Shen Juanhe. Lu Yumei snapped. Is this how you speak to your elders now? Do you think becoming the marquis's wife means your wings have grown strong enough to fly above us? I replied coldly. Not as bold as you, even now, still trying to crawl into the marquis's rear court. Lu Yumei's fury flared. Ruren is pregnant. Do you understand? I nearly laughed out loud. To commit such a shameless act, and yet speak of it with such pride. Ah, I said with chilling composure. Unmarried and pregnant. Then you'd best figure something out quickly. If father finds out, for the sake of the Shen family's reputation, he might beat Ruren to death. You don't need to concern yourself with your father, Lu Yumei snapped. Back then, I secured a title for myself. I can make him seek one for Rurin too. Eldest miss, better worry about your own position. Think about how to protect yourself from now on. Ah. So she was angry but trying to mask it, and had now begun threatening me. My father had favored her for years. And since she had given birth to Shin Yunshan's only son, she indeed had leverage. Unfortunately for her. It's been a while since you saw father, hasn't it? Lu Yumei's expression froze. It's already long past curfew, I said softly. And father still hasn't returned. Guess where he might be. Her face turned stiff. Shinrurin, panicked, jumped in. Mother, don't listen to her nonsense. Father must be with his colleagues. Colleagues. I echoed. What kind of colleague doesn't spend the Dragon Boat Festival with family, but instead keeps company with an old maid? Shinrurin had no answer. Auntie, I said, voice growing colder. Qingyang Street, Honghua Alley, if you have the time, you should go take a look yourself. There's a woman there carrying twins, and father is absolutely devoted to her. You'd best not do anything reckless, or you may end up losing even the last scraps of favor he has left. In fact, the first thing I had ordered Chu Tong to do was buy beautiful courtesans from Yangzhou. The second was to plant one of them in Shin Yunshan's bed. He found a pair of twin sisters. I even secretly gave one of them a fertility elixir. Now, one of them was pregnant. The sisters worked together, charming father so completely that he had long forgotten his former love, Lu Yumei. Once upon a time, Lu Yumei used her belly to win over my father and displace my mother. Now, these twin flowers were using that exact same trick to defeat her. I said nothing more. No longer caring for their expressions, I called out. Owner, see the guests out. I remained at the Shin estate for 5 days. Shin Yunshan never returned once. As I expected, Lu Yumei had indeed gone to Qingyang Street to investigate. The twin sisters ridiculed her ruthlessly. She waited by the door in hopes of intercepting Shin Yunshan, only to be scolded harshly by him on the spot. Defeated, she returned to the estate like a rooster with broken spurs. She no longer dared mention Shinrurin's pregnancy. My father's heart had turned elsewhere, and Shinrurin's situation was growing ever more precarious. But surprisingly, she did not seem the least bit afraid. I knew exactly what she was relying on. She still believed in Xie Changfeng's feelings for her. I asked owner to bring me a few novels to pass the time and waited in silence for news. After half a month, someone sent by Luo Shui arrived in secret. Something has happened to Xie Changfeng, they said. I returned to the marquise at once. Xie Changfeng was still unconscious. What happened? I asked. Luo Shui's voice trembled. I don't know. It was rare for the Marquis to come home, but the moment he returned, he collapsed. The household physician suspects poison, but no one knows what kind. I immediately ordered the imperial pass brought out and sent for physician Wang. When the old man arrived and laid eyes on Xie Changfeng, his expression turned grave. Physician Wang, I asked anxiously, how is the Marquis? He let out a long sigh, then gave me a deeply sympathetic look. Madam, the Marquis has been poisoned with sterility poison. It's already sunk deep into the marrow. Outwardly, he seems fine, but inside, the damage is done. I'm afraid, he can no longer function. At that, I covered my face and began weeping. In Physician Wang's eyes, I was still young, without a child, and now faced a husband who had been ruined. To cry was natural. But in truth, I was only trying not to laugh. On the Dragon Boat Festival, when Shinrurin had replaced Luo Shui's sachet, she had also secretly swapped Xie Changfeng's, not with a poisoned one, but with one she had embroidered herself. She simply couldn't bear to let him wear something I'd made. Later that day, when the housemaid from Snowfall Courtyard came to report at the ancestral hall, I used the opportunity, while helping support Xie Changfeng, to silently switch the sachet on his belt with mine. This time, it was poisoned. Inside was powdered earthworm soaked in mercury. A man who wore it would absorb the poison gradually, and within days, that part of him would begin to rot from the inside. He had been troubled in recent days. The woman he adored was pregnant, yet he could not marry her. Restless and distracted, he had never thought to remove the sachet. And so, half a month passed. The poison had already done its work. When I had cried enough, I asked, "Can his life be saved?" "Yes," Wang replied. "But he will never father children again." "How unfortunate." I whispered tearfully. "What a shame. I didn't take his life too." That night, Xie Changfeng finally woke. When he learned the news, he roared, "Who poisoned me?" I gently shook my head and handed physician Wang all of Xie Changfeng's personal items for examination. The old man had just begun to doze off, but at my words, he opened his eyes and took them, frowning deeply. In the end, it was discovered that the potion came from the sachet. I hurriedly grabbed it, carefully turning it over. My eyes reddened as I said, "My lord, this sachet was personally made by me for you during the Duanwu festival. But I could never have laced it with poison. I've never had children of my own. Harming you would be no different than harming myself." Xie Changfeng's face was darker than ever. I furrowed my brow and added, "Yet, this stitching, it truly is mine. I learned it from my mother. In this world, aside from me, only Anning knows a little of the technique. I have no children. My future is bound to yours. I have no reason to hurt you. But neither does Anning, does she?" I looked at him. "My lord, perhaps we should report this to the authorities and let the court investigate who planted the poison." "No need," Xie Changfeng replied, his eyes brimming with hatred. "I already know who did it." After giving him his medicine and sending him to rest, I personally saw Grand Physician Wang out. When I turned back, Luo Shui was already waiting at the inner gate. She was trembling with fury, her eyes red. Upon seeing me, she burst out, "My lady, Shenruren has gone too far. She dared poison the Marquis." I had never shared any part of this plan with Luo Shui. I assumed she was simply concerned about Xie Changfeng. But instead, she cried, "If my lady cannot bear children anymore, what will you do?" She glanced down nervously, then suddenly said, "My lady, you should divorce the Marquis. There are many women in the Great Yan dynasty who divorced and still found happiness. I have an elder sister," she added earnestly. "I'll beg her to help you find a good husband." So it turns out, she was heartbroken for me. My heart ached bitterly. In my past life, I had fought tooth and nail against Luo Shui. Yet now I realized how simple and sincere she truly was. If only she had been my sister by blood, how wonderful it would have been. "It's all right," I gently patted her head. "Xie Changfeng has good looks, a strong background, he doesn't gamble or chase women, and there's no cruel mother-in-law. In our time, he's already a good husband. Even if we did separate, who's to say a new man would be better?" Luo Shui fell silent. Back then, she had also given herself to Xie Changfeng because she thought he was a good man. "Your belly's grown. Go back and rest. Leave everything else to me," I said. After seeing her off, I had only summoned Chu Tong. I instructed him, "Find a way to let Shen Yunshan and those two new concubine sisters know that Shenruren is pregnant." The time had come. Yes, he accepted the order and left. 2 days later, I heard that Shen Yunshan brought the sisters back to the Shen residence. As soon as they returned, Shenruren was banished to the countryside estate. He had originally wanted to expel her from the family entirely, but since Lu Concubine had borne his eldest son, Shen Xiang, he restrained himself. To outsiders, he merely claimed Ruren had fallen ill and needed rest in the countryside. So, he spared her. Oni asked. "How could that be?" I answered. "Xie Changfeng hates her now. Xin Yunshan no longer cares. The only support she and her mother have left is Xin Xiang. But those two concubine sisters, do you think they'd allow Ruren's mother and son to rely on him and turn the tide? As expected, not long after, half a month at most, a scandal erupted in the Xin family. Xin Xiang had become infatuated with one of the sisters. The two concubines flew into a rage and brought their complaint straight to Xin Yunshan. Enraged to the brink of collapse, Xin Yunshan also learned the elder sister was pregnant, with twins. In fury, he immediately removed Xin Xiang's name from the family registry and cast him out. Lu Yumei cried and begged, rolling on the floor, but Xin Yunshan wouldn't even meet her once. She had finally tasted the despair my mother had once endured. Lu Yumei went to the countryside estate to see Xin Ruren one last time, then camped out in front of the marquis residence. Eventually, she caught Xie Changfeng. She knelt before him, pleading for him to save Xin Ruren, because she still carried his child. Whether out of lingering affection or reluctance to abandon the unborn child, Xie Changfeng agreed. Upon learning this, I had someone spread word that the marquis had become impotent. Furious, Xie Changfeng believed Xin Ruren had leaked the news to manipulate him. So he feigned a meeting, claiming he would elope with her, only to never appear. Instead, he hired the filthiest beggar in the capital, paid him handsomely, and sent him to pose as Ruren's lover. Then, he secretly tipped off Xin Yunshan to catch them in the act. Soon, all of the capital was abuzz with scandal. Xin Ruren eloped with a beggar. A rumor like that, worse than death itself. That was Xie Changfeng's revenge. Xin Ruren was finished. But Xie Changfeng was no better off. Disgraced, unable to bear the mockery of the world, he heard of a miraculous elixir that might restore him. So, one gentle spring morning, he donated a large sum to the Tritian Taoist temple, shaved his head, became a Taoist, and immersed himself in refining pills. From that day, he vanished from worldly life and never returned to the marquis residence. The grand estate now housed only me and Luo Shui. I took great care of her, and in the second month after Xie Changfeng entered the temple, Luo Shui gave birth to a healthy baby boy. I sent word to Xie Changfeng. He replied with a letter. In it, he asked me to take care of the marquis estate. So selfish. After abandoning me, he still wanted me to bear the duties of his wife. Of course I would take care of the estate, but not for him. For myself. After her postpartum period, Luo Shui brought the child to me. She asked me to raise him. She said she wouldn't live long, and in the future, the child's only mother would be me. So I, too, would have someone to depend on in the years ahead. I named the boy Xie Zhao, but I refused to officially adopt him. From then on, Luo Shui and I raised him together. Meanwhile, I sent word with trade caravans to the western regions, seeking a cure for the poison she had taken. Sadly, as she had once said, there was no cure. They only found a kind of earth lotus that could delay its effects. When Xie Zhao turned 6, Luo Shui passed away. I brought him along to see her properly buried. Not long after, I received an imperial decree from Consort Lin, summoning me to the palace. At the Dekong Palace, I saw Lin Yuan again. She told me that before her death, Luo Shui had repeatedly begged her to protect me. Not the child, because Luo Shui trusted I would care for him with all my heart. Her plea to Lin Yuan was her way of repaying the kindness I had shown her. With my status as the marquis principal wife and the favor of a noble consort, the rest of my life passed peacefully. Xie Zhao was a good boy. He always remembered his birth mother was Luo Shui, but he truly regarded me as his own mother. When he turned 20, I visited Tritian Temple to see Xie Changfeng once more. I asked him to pass on the marquis title to Xie Zhao. It had only been 20 years, but Xie Changfeng looked ancient, his hair white, his back hunched. One glance told me he had not lived well. He was overwhelmed upon seeing Xie Zhao. This was his only son. Seeing him well raised, he immediately agreed and submitted the memorial to the court to hand over his title. With a successor for the Xie family, he sincerely thanked me for my devotion to the household. But he had grown too old and blind to see the loathing in Xie Zhao's eyes. I endured the revulsion and spoke politely with him, waiting until he signed the documents. Then, I took Xie Zhao and left the temple. I never saw Xie Changfeng again. 6 years later, Xie Zhao's wife bore him a son. Word came from Tritian Temple, Xie Changfeng, bedridden for years, had taken a turn for the worse. 3 days later, it was reported he had died, writhing in pain on his sickbed. I did not order his coffin to be brought home. Neither did Xie Zhao. If anyone asked, I simply smiled and said, "The old marquis devoted his heart to the Tao. We are mere mortals, bringing him back with worldly rites would only harm him. How could I ever bring harm to anyone?" The end.